Action.
All right. So we are recording. Up-to-Date Cinephile, week 2.
That's right. We did it. We're at the end of this. We'll have twice as much content as we did before. It'll never be. I mean, it's crazy, right? Because you go to 0 to 1, that's infinite. You can never do more than that.
That's true.
You can't even conceive of what you just did then. Here it's double, and after that, it just gets worse and worse.
Worse and worse.
Every podcast you do now is like an additional 1/7,000th more content than you had before.
That is, that's how that's the glass half empty point of view.
Which is you.
Content.
That's your role. I'm the glass is half full guy.
Yeah, that's true.
I need to
reverse there.
I need to step it up. I need to drink more coffee. We're going to talk about some movies today.
We are going to talk about some movies. I'm going to say up front, you know how last week I said I liked one more than the other, but I liked both generally. This week I don't like either.
Okay, good. Movies. That's good. That's good.
I didn't like either.
You didn't like either of them. But I'm going to guess you liked one more than the other. I certainly liked one more than the other. I mean, and I'd be shocked if it weren't the same one for both of us. But time will tell.
No. I'm pretty. I think it's pretty safe. I think there are elements about one that I like quite a bit.
Yes.
And I think it goes off the rails and it injures itself at the finale.
What's little known is Kyle actually is a taxidermy fanatic. So if you were looking around, you would see all the antlers around us.
It is really true.
We don't put them in the frame because, people get triggered.
Yeah.
Dead animal carcasses just chilling in your one bed.
Especially in California. You're not...
You should get a moose head that takes up like half of your living room.
I wish.
That would be a real statement piece.
There is in Burbank, which is just over yonder, there is a animal, like you can rent animal hides and animal, like stuffed animals for movie sets.
That's one thing, right, is you can get anything here.
Yes, true.
Anything you could need for a movie film.
Somebody's got it.
Someone's got it. Or someone can make it. That's the other shit, right?
Yeah.
Someone can fabricate it.
Yeah, I've seen some good work on that. Yeah.
So we're talking about Last Night in Soho and Antlers. I'm guessing we're going to go in that order.
Might as well.
And we've been admonished by your beautiful partner to do a spoiler-free review. So we will begin with a spoiler-free review.
Yeah.
And then we will transition to a spoiler-filled review.
With specifics, we'll get into the plot, mechanics.
And if you look down here...
Yeah, hopefully
there will be tags
that
you can click to various parts. And you can also hit the like and the subscribe. Smash those likes. Smash that subscribe. We need to... I need to just keep doing things because we need to keep me off the street.
I mean, this is why we're doing it.
This is like midnight basketball.
This is personal charitable contribution.
Kyle does this for me because it's a couple hours where I won't be fucking up.
Yeah, I do what I can. I do what I can for my friends.
So drum roll, please. Last Night in Soho. This is the movie that you liked somewhat.
I like
somewhat. more.
Oh, definitely more than Antlers.
We're going to talk about.
That is true. I liked Last Night in Soho definitely more than Antlers, but for me, this is in the vein. This is kind of in the disappointing streak of Edgar Wright for me. Much in the same way that the disappointing period of his career. I did not much care for Baby Driver. I think that should be stated up front, and maybe that will give you an idea of what I like and what I don't like. And maybe if you did like Baby Driver, keep in mind that you might like Last Night in Soho more than me. This is not a judgment on who likes what. This is just how
We're here to judge. That's what we do.
I know, but it's
we're
more
judgers.
Yeah,
that's what the people give the people what they want. You got to give some judgments.
No, but I'm how I digest cinema is.
This is a movie. It has moving pictures.
It certainly is
combined with sound.
It's successful in that way. It is a movie. It has a moving picture. It has sound. It has acting. All those things are present in Last Night in Soho. I did not much... So, spoiler-free take. I found it to be actually Edgar Wright's messiest picture. I found it to be a little disconnected, a little...
discombobulated.
Discombobulated is a good word for it. I think he has a lot of cinema pastiche that is informed by a lot of postmodern filmmakers, a lot of film school filmmakers. I mean, it's present in all his work, from Spaced to Shaun of the Dead, the Cornetto trilogy, all of it, to even Scott Pilgrim versus the World, and Baby Driver is kind of an homage to that sort of American action heist cinema. And I suppose this is where it felt the emptiest to me, and maybe ultimately the emptiest, because I think there are some sequences in this that are far better than what was orchestrated in Baby Driver. I think there's some beautiful design work, camera work. I mean, it's Park Chan-wook's cinematographer, all from South Korea, and he does a grand job of capturing the...
It's a great looking movie.
Oh, it looks great. The costuming.
It's a great looking movie.
Yeah,
it is. You can't argue with that.
Yeah, it's beautifully shot, conceived. It just, for me, the mythology of the thriller, the ultimate finale, the revelation, it takes it so off the rails that ultimately I don't think it necessarily matters what happens. To me, it didn't matter what happens with the characters. They became sort of empty by the end of the film. You could see the templative use of cinema all around, all his influences, from Taste of Honey to Repulsion to The Servant. I mean, he is pulling he's pulling no punches when it comes to utilizing his influence.
I mean, if there's one thing you can guarantee in this movie, it's that everyone's going to do exactly what they have to do.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think there was any character in this movie that did a surprising thing.
No, yeah.
Or wasn't pretty one-dimensional.
It very much was, yeah.
And I have to say, it's a testimony to how great a filmmaker Edgar Wright is on some level. Mm-hmm. I mean, I love a lot of his movies.
Yeah.
I think Hot Fuzz is probably one of the funniest movies made this century.
I would be in total agreement.
I mean, it's just so good. Shaun of the Dead, also great. One of my best film-going experiences this year was going to see that Scott Pilgrim
re-release, the 10-year anniversary
in Dolby, right? Which it was a movie that I thought aged really well. I remember first seeing it. Like, I don't have an attachment to that story particularly, but rewatching it, I was like, this is a great movie. Like, this is really lovely to watch.
No, Scott Pilgrim's on top consideration for his works for me. I really do think it is a incredible adaptation of the manga, but also kind of a use of video game style, comic book styling. I mean, that's where his stylistic tendencies breed a substance to a large degree. In this movie, his stylization breeded no substance.
Because the drama, what is the drama of Edgar Wright? The drama of Edgar Wright, the story of him. We love you, Edgar Wright. Come on the pod. You're great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that he's so good at making movies.
He is.
He's so good at it. He's such just a preternaturally gifted filmmaker that he can... Like, I found myself enjoying this movie in spite of everything that you said, which I think is all accurate.
Yeah.
Right? It's a movie where the kind of central conceit of it, I mean, we don't want to spoil any aspects of the movie. The central conceit of it is unbelievable and kind of hard to... It's sort of just accepted in the movie, and it's kind of hard to parse. None of the characters kind of behave the way they're supposed to behave, kind of past the point of reason. People kind of love and hate the main character past the point of reason.
Yeah.
Without really any evolution of how they feel about her. She just kind of, gets further enmeshed in this drama that she's enmeshed in.
Essentially out of her control.
Out of her control. It's all just kind of happening to her. For me, yeah, he's just too good. He's a prisoner of how good he is. Mm-hmm. He's so good that it all... I mean, in a way, these people are going to hate me for this comparison, but there's something of Avatar in a movie like this, where like certain aspects of it are so overwhelmingly aesthetically powerful that they can kind of overbear you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? Like this, he's just so good, and you can see that this image of these two, I mean, I won't call it a spoiler if it's given away in the trailer. Like there's like two people living sort of a parallel existence, right? Yeah. Or one person kind of experiencing the other's existence. The images that he had in his head of how he could play with that were so powerful and so effective, right? Just so great, right? That it didn't there was nothing to rein him in from achieving that aesthetically, which is like, I mean, I just love the way his movies look. I love the way they feel. They have a kind of energy to them.
Definitely.
I feel the same way about Baby Driver. They just have a kind of energy to them that is just, you can't shake even when you had issues with the movie.
An energy that still persists even though we're talking about how it's stylistically embellished to a large degree. It is kind of reining in his hyperkinetic editing style. It really is more fluid and restrained and letting the visual.
He doesn't do the little tricks.
Yeah.
That really sort of characterize his more comedic work to great effect, right?
He lets you linger in this world. It's interesting because a lot of the reviews are talking about how it's the fear or the dangers of getting ingrained in nostalgia, and I think even Edgar Wright has come out and said that's very much true. This is part of the reason I'm a bit critical, is I feel the benefit and the best part of the film is its embellishment of the 1960s, its immersion into it, and if that's the seductive quality, and I don't necessarily feel the danger persist or get worse as it comes around. I found the scares and to be tropish and predictable.
Tropish.
I mean,
he's doing tropes.
It is. There's a lot of tropes filled with them.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's funny, right? Because that's sort of a parallel. His London is kind of a parallel with the French town of French Dispatch that we talked about last week. Kind of beautifully constructed, obviously fantastical in a certain sense, or sort of idealized and stylized, right? But very beautiful, right? Very beautiful. And I mean, the way he deploys sort of mirrors and like, I thought that was just brilliant, brilliant.
Yeah, there's a sequence in the middle of this movie where the camera moves fluidly on the dance floor as Thomas and Mackenzie and Anya Taylor-Joy switch in and out of the shot, and the blurring effect of who is who and who's experiencing what is magnificent.
Oh yeah,
it's just, I don't think it gets better than this first initial seductive sequence of the 1960s. Once it starts getting into its thriller aspects, once it starts getting into the repulsion female trouble picture of mental illness.
Yeah, and just everything gets fucking grim.
It gets grim, but it also gets incoherent. You're just like, oh, you could have literally done anything in these segments. Yeah. And ultimately, it doesn't matter what she experienced because it's not necessarily real.
Yeah.
And maybe that's kind of a spoiler, but not really, because it is oriented in perspective. Well,
I think people know that things are going to go wrong.
Yes, yeah, they do. I mean, the trailer is pretty obvious.
I think that's. I think we can. Like I said, I think we can. If it's in the trailer, I think we can say it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but like I said, so my bottom line before we get into spoilers, which I think we're about ready to do.
Yeah.
I am. Is that like. I found myself enjoying, like, if I had to go straight thumbs up, thumbs down, I'd probably give this movie a marginal thumbs up, only because I found myself tremendously captivated by it, even though I acknowledge that it has all the problems that we could, we're going to get into in great detail, I'm sure. Should we go to spoilers?
Well, I'll also summarize just to be clear. Let me be clear. I just want to be clear. Edgar Wright, I think anything he does is worth checking out.
Absolutely. So, if you see this in a theater, you see this on the big screen, is very captivating visually, and there are visual moments in it that are
and great acting.
I'm just jumping in here.
I think that's very fair, and great acting. He has a great use of I would call gimmick casting that I think is intentional and wonderful. The seeing some old veteran British actors fill out the periphery of this story while it's centered on a young person in the modern day, sort of fixated on the past. There is something intoxicating about his visuals, about his setting, and what loses me is when it gets into the more thriller notions. I wasn't necessarily curious as to how it unfolded. I was not necessarily scared for. I mean, Thomasin McKenzie's great, but this whole like just looking shocked at things happening around her, I wasn't necessarily convinced that she was so passive as a character that I wanted her, as it went along, to be more engaged. And there are moments where she does reach out, and but it's unconvincing in the end. And then when you get to the finale, and I think that's where, when we get into spoilers, I can talk about it fully, I find it incoherent. I find it unconvincing and uninteresting to a large degree, and how it was filmed overwrought to a large degree. So I think always, because I think we're talking about it right now, and we already have the box office numbers. I think it's unfortunate it didn't do so well at the box office, in the idea that it needed to do slightly better. It was slightly disappointing. I really do encourage you to go see it, because it is, at least, even if it's a distillation of his cinematic prowess and influence, that he's definitely capturing a 1960s flair. Yeah. I think that's wonderful. Even though those films in the past are better than this version, yeah, I think there's something to be said about the concept of trying to do something different, trying to do something engaging, and utilizing your influence to a creative degree. And so you should support movies like this.
Yeah.
You should go see it, experience it, even though I found it slightly disappointing in the filmography of Edgar Wright. It doesn't necessarily mean as Ben said, I didn't enjoy myself. Like I wasn't like rolling my eyes. Yeah. I wasn't feeling frustrated. Didn't have like a fight or flight attitude.
You're like,
I mean, every time
get the fuck out.
I experienced that during the Whedon cut of Justice League when it came out in theaters. I was like, I better fight this or I better leave, and I almost left. I almost, because it was so frustrating.
I've taken no bites of that apple. I took neither the Whedon bite nor the Snyder bite. But yeah, this is for we're up-to-date cinephiles. Our audience, they're cinephiles. They're students of the game. They're heads. They're fucking into it. And, like, I think it's interesting. Like, part of the reason I love doing this with you, not just because you look so good.
Oh, thanks.
But it's good to watch movies by great directors that are not their best work.
I think that's there's a lot to get out of that.
I mean, because you can kind of see where they go wrong. Like I said, I think where he goes wrong is he has these beautiful images in his head that he wants to actualize. I think that this is there are other movies I've seen. I'm trying to think of a good example. I think that the dance sequence in Silver Linings Playbook, or the end sequence in what's the first Chazelle movie, the drummer one?
Oh, Whiplash.
These are movies that I have real problems with, but they have these great sequences, and you could tell that the director just had the sequence in their head, and like, I got to get to that. I got to get to that. Well, and with Wright, it's like it wasn't so much one sequence, although I agree the dance sequence is the ne plus ultra of this particular movie, but there's a lot of great visuals playing with these two characters kind of going back and forth, interchanging, having sort of parallel experiences. I could just tell he was obsessed with the visual potential of that, which he realizes. Like, I mean, he absolutely realizes, but it comes at the expense of, like, I just think that and that's why Silver Linings Playbook and other movies by David O. Russell have this effect for me, who I don't like as much as Edgar Wright, but is certainly
definitely not. No.
But is a gifted filmmaker in some way. I mean, has certain cinematic gifts
in some regard, yeah.
Like, and I'll stand Three Kings till the end of time, which I think is
Three Kings is pretty good.
I think is a great movie. but you can just tell like he's got this thing he wants to do, and he just needs to get to it. And this movie, it's like you could tell he had this visual concept, which is brilliant, right? And he ties it with her being a fashion designer, which gives it this added aestheticization that is really beautiful. But like it just, there are things that are done in service of pushing that story forward that just ultimately do not work.
Yes.
And he doesn't know how to pay it off.
Well, and this is, I think we're going to get down. Yeah, we can
Let's
start
do spoilers.
going
Let's
spoilers.
give him a little pause.
Into the
give him a
details.
pause. Just take a moment.
All right. Pause.
Smash that
Pause.
like. Smash that subscribe. Move on. Click the next thing. I don't know which way.
I'm glad you're doing this because I don't care. I don't care.
You don't care? You don't want people to smash the like?
I mean, it's...
You know, if you get 100,000 subscribers, you get a trophy.
A trophy?
You get a trophy.
Like a physical...
They send you a physical trophy.
Well, I mean, I have a mantle.
I want to put you on that path, buddy.
I have a mantle.
I want to put you on that path. Okay, let's do spoilers. Let's do spoilers.
All right. Well, so just jumping off of what you were talking about, I do think Edgar Wright is a visual storyteller. He has sequences in his mind. This is where his kinetic energy comes from. This is where his sense of humor comes from, through visual style.
Greatest visual comic filmmaker of our time.
I think
without really close competition.
Yeah, he understands that you can tell a joke and punctuate a joke or tell a joke just purely visually, or how it's edited or how it's framed. Fantastic to watch. I mean, his first couple movies are pretty ingenious with this kind of level of attention to detail. And so when you were talking about with Last Night in Soho, he brings that attention to detail, and you can tell he has got these beautiful images in his mind. He's got these, what he deems thrilling sequences in his mind. He knows how to tell it visually. It's just on a narrative level, I found it taking some shortcuts, some cheap setups, especially with Thomasin McKenzie, who brings more to the table than what is written for her because she is such a great actress. I mean, if anyone has not seen, I mean, pretty much everyone's seen Jojo Rabbit, I'm sure, but Leave No Trace with Ben Foster, she's excellent. And she is just a great, great up-and-coming performer who's got a delicateness to her, but also a vulnerability, but also she can have autonomy of self, which you can see in Jojo Rabbit. Even though there's vulnerability to the character, she has to be, up front and center.
She's great. She's great, but she brings as much subtlety to this role as you can, but the movie tells you really early what it will and won't do, right? Because she gets to fashion school. I actually like the fact that it's just taken as a given that she has some sort of vision. Yeah, because her mother... I actually like that because...
Yeah, that's fine.
Because I think that's boring to get into, is it real, isn't it real? Just accept the conceit that it's real. Which means, in a way, we're doing kind of science fiction, right? Which is interesting.
Yeah, she has
a kind of fantasy.
She's got The Shining, essentially what it is.
She can see things. That's never questioned, right? And I like that. That's one thing that's one choice that I like, because I think that if it gets into the is this real or not thing, that's a whole other movie.
Yeah.
Whatever, we've seen that.
Yeah.
But she gets to art school and immediately she meets the mean girls. And how mean are they? They're the meanest. And they are
the worst.
Totally
it's her roommate.
They're totally flat. This is like people who don't exist, right? There are shitty people in the world, but most people at least initially want everyone to like them. So the girl, her name is Yocasta. I mean, she's just
only Yocasta because she wants the Bono one name.
She's just so mean, and she's just with her little clique of just mean people who are just mean.
It's Mean Girls.
But the characters in Mean. I mean, Mean Girls is a great movie actually, these characters are just mean in such a flat and boring way.
I agree. Yeah, which makes it frustrating, because I think you could have a very intriguing, discomforting idea, because a lot of what her character is based off, because she's from the country, she's got sort of a prudishness. Maybe just an unworldliness. She's being exposed to the city. This is all very different for her.
Yes.
You could apply it that they could all just be themselves and what is more comfortable with sexuality, more comfortable with things, more knowledgeable of the world, and it makes her uncomfortable, and that's good enough for her to go.
Well, what's funny, and this is something that's going to come back to us in Antlers, is that it's like these movies are made in some parallel universe where people don't have the internet. The chance that someone's going to go to London and not know anything about it, not have any preconceived notion, Like, it would be much more believable that she would come to London expecting to meet a Jocasta, but then people are kind of nice, but they're fucked up in some other way. I understand that this isn't like a character drama about like being in fashion school, right, and moving to the big city. But like at the end of the day, he needs to push her out of her dorm room into the apartment, so he just makes it terrible. He makes it terrible in a totally unbelievable way. Yeah. The same way that the boy who likes her in a totally unbelievable way.
Yes.
Culminating in a scene
Empty.
where
It's shallow,
where she literally, they're making out. She literally jumps out of bed, starts screaming uncontrollably, has to run out of the house under threats of violence from her landlady, and he still like really likes her and like wants to hang out with her and help her out.
It was really funny walking out of the theater. I was going down the escalator from the Burbank Theater, and two girls behind me, they were like, "Oh my God, he was so wonderful. Where's that guy in my life?" I'm like, he doesn't exist.
But also, like, is he wonderful? Like, I mean,
yeah, there's a question.
I mean,
there.
like, I mean, he's. I was glad that they didn't do the promising young woman thing where he turns out to be a bad dude too.
That would be
which is annoying and so on the nose, and one of the things that makes that movie not as good as, I don't know. That's a fine movie.
That's a different conversation.
That's a different conversation. Yeah. But the point is, like,
honestly though, there are similarities.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's definitely similarities.
Definite similarities.
But I'm glad that he didn't turn out to be a predator.
Yes.
Just because that would have just been so okay. I get it. Like, okay.
Oh, everybody's bad.
But also just like, it would just be too obvious. But instead what they do with him is just make him like absolutely so smitten and committed to her.
A simp.
He's taken simping to a whole other level, right?
Olympian.
I mean, I can't imagine. Like I said, like, you can accept the conceit of the movie, which is that she has some sort of vision.
Yeah.
That's easier to accept than people who are presented as actual people, but who behave in ways that are unrealistic. Make no sense.
And
like if I'm I can't even imagine what would happen if I was making out with someone and they got out of bed, started screaming at me, I had to run out while I was being threatened by their landlady.
Yeah.
Like, that's such a horrifying experience, right?
That would be traumatic.
That would be terrible. That would be that would rank as like an experience I would remember 20 years later and think, like, that was a terrible life experience, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of you're right. There's a lot of unbelievable elements to this script. And this is what I think I was trying to get at maybe earlier before we got into some of the details, is that I don't think Edgar Wright is a great script writer. I think he conceives things visually and is able to articulate that in the written word so that it for people to understand what he wants to do. But when it comes down to characters, I think if you look at the way how he writes his scripts or who he writes his scripts with, his strongest character pieces are when he collaborates with Simon Pegg. And I feel like it's because they're writing characters they're writing characters that are exaggerated forms of the real life, but that you can understand that they are those people existed in some form or way. And in this movie, none of the characters, even Sadie, Eloise, they are hyper forms of fantasy. And that might be the choice here because the movie blends sort of an ethereal fantasia of the nostalgia of the 60s and getting into that the mod fashion and getting into that era. But again, you have to sort of, if you're going to do the unreal versus the real and have a confusing element, you have to ground your movie. And his grounding is flawed. And it's just that's what makes it not work ultimately.
Well, but what's weird, right, is if you were going to construct a movie along similar lines, right? Mm-hmm. The way you'd probably think of doing it is to make the people in the past avatars that you then kind of look at, right? There's James Cameron.
Come back to it.
Yes, they'd be blue. They'd be the Na'vi. No, but like, they would be the flat characters, and then the world around you would be the problematic one. Mm-hmm. And the movie kind of inverts that, right? Which is weird, because they're all avatars. None of the characters have any meaningful depth.
Yes,
right.
This is a problem. Yeah.
But like, the people in the real world, right, or the present day, are like you said, they're very archetypal, right? Mm-hmm. they are like the good guy and the loving grandmother. And
So I do have to say, that's Rita Tushingham. Not a lot of people know who she is, but she is a wonderful, wonderful British actress who did, like, when you see the old veterans like Terrence Stamp and Diana Rigg, you know who they are. Rita Tushingham is unrecognizable to a lot of people, and she is wonderful. She's in A Taste of Honey. Just actually yesterday, I did a podcast episode on The Bed Sitting Room. She's in that as well. I do have to say, Loving Grandmother is just kind of her temperament. So
yes,
but you're right. There's an archetypal choice there with the character. So casting her was, I think, an ingenious casting choice. But you're right. It doesn't. There's no depth to it.
You're going to have flat characters in movies. Like, movies are movies, right? They have flat characters. They just can't all be flat, right? I mean, you're going to have characters that just show up to tell you go to the store, right? Or the key is in the, the princess is in the other dungeon, right? I mean, you're gonna have
oh, poor Toad.
You're gonna have characters like that. That's fine. That's that's whatever. Like, the point is that they can't all be that way, and even if you make them archetypal or flat-ish, you can still throw some texture on them.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, to me, the boyfriend is the craziest, right? Because he really never changes and is pretty much pot committed to her from the beginning.
He's gonna be her rock. He's
the ultimate. He's the ultimate like knight in shining armor. To the point that it just doesn't even read as realistic in any meaningful sense.
And you can do a mix again if you just complicate the character. You can have the same story, you can have the same structure, and just give him a little bit of hesitation.
But he needs to be there. Yes. But the point is, he needs to be there at the end.
Yes. To
make the end sequence work. Right. Just like the mean girl needs to force her out of the apartment. Or force her out of the dorm into the apartment. Yeah, that needs to happen. So you need to just make it happen, and the way he makes it happen is by, and this is another thing that'll come up in our discussion of Antlers, at least for me, is like why characters do things and having to explain why they do what they do, right? This little tease for you,
Antlers, for those for Antlers,
but like. So like you see how the pieces need to be on the board, and he gets them there, right? He gets them to where they need to be, but he gets them where they need to be without it being in any way dramatically interesting, right? Like, it makes it all just seem contrived.
It does,
because it's like, okay, she's the meanest mean girl. You can't live with her. She's gonna bring. I mean, honestly, like one of my. I really love the opening sequence of Social Network.
It's great,
and what I love about it is that it's clearly like a fever dream, right? And but like I think that Fincher's. Like, a lot of people play scenes like that, but they're meant to be real, right? Like, the party scene in the dorm is just so... It's overdone. It's she can't sleep because people are... It's just like, life is just not like this, right? This is someone's idea. Like the whole fashion school thing is just like... It's like someone who's about to go to fashion schools... fever dream of like a worst case scenario of how that shit would play out, which is hilarious, which is very effective when Fincher does it for 2 minutes at the beginning of Social Network to explain kind of the emptiness at the center of his main character that he will keep trying to fill. Yeah, right. But as a sort of whole premise for a movie, it just doesn't work. It's like it's all just like it's very like Breakfast Club. It's just like somebody's idea of a thing that is made so idealized that it just feels ridiculous.
Yeah, no, that's very fair. You brought up this whole thing with the fashion school. I'm just so curious as to why it's such an interesting parallel that he's trying to create in his two worlds. One is she's a fashion designer, And then the other one, Sadie, she is trying to be... Is it Sadie or Sandy? Excuse me. Sandy, I think. Right?
Sandy, yes.
Sandy, excuse me. I apologize. But Sandy, Anya Taylor-Joy, she's trying to be a singer in the entertainment side of London. I don't understand what the two parallels are. I feel like there is the same... kind of corruption and the same kind of usury in the fashion industry at that time too. Wouldn't it make more sense that there was a direct sort of parallel? But maybe it is just sort of a commentary on industry and women being in the industry.
That's also why you get that sort of that just gratuitously creepy sequence with the cab driver at the beginning.
Yes. Again, I believe that these things happen. And obviously there is this is the same with like Promising Young Woman. There's a level of exaggeration to a reality, which Promising Young Woman reads sort of like a fantasy to me, that this is a woman caught in her brain about what she thinks she should be doing. I think she's like catatonic in her room. Like she can't actually, she's not actually doing these things. She actually can't, which becomes really, really depressing when you think about it.
The phrase for it is just, it's on the nose. The shit is just also on the nose.
Yeah.
Like, okay, it's a super creepy cab driver. It's, it's fucked up.
This is all the men in London.
Of course it happens. Of course it happens, right? But what is it to the movie, right? Like, what is it to the story? Like, it's just your attempt to tell me like what you think this story's about, right? Which is like, we're in show don't tell territory here. We're making movies, right? And no storytelling medium is better if you tell me what the fuck you think it's about. Yeah. I'll tell you what it's about.
Sure,
I'll tell you what it's about. That's my job.
Yeah,
that's your job. I mean, and the extent to which you try to tell me what it's about, I'm just going to resist that. Because I'm like a child. I'm like an angry child. And I don't want to be told what things are. I'm a precocious, angry child. And I don't want to be told what things are about because I think I can figure it out. In any case, I think it's my right to figure it out. So you trying to tell me what it's about, right? Is just offensive to me. It's just, I just don't care. Right?
I don't think I think
shit what you think it's about.
I think it's a betrayal of the maturity of your audience, that they can bring to it an understanding of what you're trying to convey, what you're trying to do, without explicitly stating it. This movie is so overtly stated with the sexual politics, with the discrimination, with the usury of women, and it's so on the nose, it's so direct. I mean, you could say that it's all kind of a setup for the twist at the end, is that ultimately Sandy was she was a victim, but she turned that around to being the assailant to a large degree.
She's a serial killer. We're in spoiler alert.
We're already in spoiler
territory. She's a serial killer.
Yeah, Diana Rigg is revealed, who's wonderful. I think Diana Rigg and Terrence Stamp, Rita Tushingham, the veterans come out so well.
There's no bad acting in this movie.
There's no bad acting.
These people are doing what they can with what they got.
Yes.
I mean, there's no... This is not on any actors. Yeah, I mean, I think that... I don't know if this was intentional or not. I mean, the final sequence with the drink is just straight lifted from Get Out, right? Which is kind of... I wanted to see her fall, like, into the couch.
But instead of falling into the couch, they have this weird sequence where the stairs become this elaborate, like, ghostly... I
think that was from that dream sequence in Big Lebowski. I think that was a repurposed graphic.
It does look that way. I'm surprised they didn't have people with pins, like, coming in and out. Have, like, the Viking helmet.
What condition was her condition at that point?
Exactly. I hated that choice. I despised everything visually about that. I think it would have been more eerie had it been Anya Taylor-Joy as Sandy, a younger version, within the realm of the physical location. Again, I think a lot of why this movie fails me is that this eeriness or the potential creepiness of it all, I think, is undercut by blatant ugly CGI sequences
Yeah,
of ghostly
yeah,
men. The ugly CGI.
I see
of
the
that
ghostly
finale.
men. The ghostly men were more effective for me as,
But it was at
just
times,
as a purely visual. Like whatever the problem was. I thought the CGI was effective. Like I was creeped out by them. Whereas the stairway to hell or whatever.
I mean,
I
Stairway to Hell,
agree
that
with
was
you
bad.
100%.
But the men, I thought, were creepy up to a point. Like, I think there was some visual punctuation with them where it was very Lynchian, clearly. I mean, it's very Carnival of Souls.
Yeah.
That's how
Oh well,
they look.
it's funny, right? Because one of the spoilers, brief spoilers for obvious spoilers for Antlers here, in case you care, but like. One thing Antlers is right is doesn't show you the monster until the end, right? Like it kind of
That is to its benefit.
that it doles
Big
out
time.
the monster. Whereas this, you know, the first time you see the ghastly men is effective, but they should have been saved for, you know.
But it was
you get a lot of them.
But it was also
You
how
get a lot of them.
you get a lot of them. It's a
Those
little
guys,
overdone. It's a little overwrought. But at one point,
But I mean, you're just never gonna have the visual impact of the first time. The first
Yeah.
time they showed it, I was really like, oh, that's fucked up.
Yeah, no, and it has impact. But he also repeats a structure of scare, I think 2 or 3 times, where something happens, she gets scared, she goes into a lull, like into the restroom, and then she turns, and then it's another scare on top of it. I'm like, you already did that structure. It takes out the impact of it again. I already know how you're telling your scares. It starts getting repetitive.
Yeah, but I think this also goes to what is another problem, kind of at the heart of the movie's concept, which is like if you're gonna have magic, right? Like she's a fantastical character. She has magical power. You can give a character magical power, 100%. Like I said, I'd rather have it be a magical power than like the movie be a meditation on whether this shit's really happening or not. That's, to me, like I said, I've seen that movie. Very hard to put a new spin on that. She's magical. She's a wizard, right? She has magic, right? She has magic.
It's true. Yeah.
It's a science fiction fantasy thing. She has magic. It's fine. She can have magic. It's a movie. Yeah. But it has to make sense and it has to be consistent. Like you can't just have it be whatever whenever.
Yeah.
Right? So what is her magic, right? She sees things while she's awake, plus she has like lucid she has like she's seeing things all the time. She's lucid dreaming and going through the dream, kind of sometimes experiencing what other person is experiencing, sometimes observing them.
Yeah.
Which is visually cool but makes no sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't have an internal logic. And then she's also seeing a bunch of shit while she's awake. And then at the end, when Diana Rigg's like, people are gonna think you top yourself. Like, I'd top myself.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
If I was seeing shit all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like she what she is experiencing is so far beyond like even like a schizophrenic, right?
Yes,
I mean, she's having just insane, like, sleeping and waking visions that just compound and compound.
And I think
it's
that's
like,
where
what is her, and so like she's having, I guess the dreams are real magic and the rest of it is insanity provoked by the real
by the
magic.
dreams,
But
or
her
the
seeing her
exposure.
mother is not, and she sees her mother as a real person, but the men are like these phantasms, these naked dick swinging phantasms. I mean, it's just like, it's just so many things. It's like, we're just going to give her all of it. We're just going to give her everything. And like, at the end of the day, I agree with you. It's too much. And the sheer quantity of shit that she's seeing dilutes its impact.
Yeah, that is 100% correct. And with her performance, like, she portrays a mental acuity that I think is stronger than it should be, even though she is drifting into
but she also
madness
almost stabs
and insanity.
someone, and that just kind of like nothing happens. I guess that's cool.
Yeah. There's no consequence to that at all. In fact, she becomes a celebratory fashion designer, even though she tried to murder another student.
And her boyfriend just keeps on. Not even her boyfriend at that point.
I don't know
like
what it is.
the guy who kind of follows her around and just shows up all the time.
He's very supportive. So that's the thing. It's like, if you want to do like this Catherine Deneuve, like a descent into insanity and madness, like in Repulsion, you have to make it like where the visual where it builds up in these visual, in the mythology of it, and what is happening in her mind. You have to actually give her something where she is breaking down, and you can actually feel it, and you feel for her. And because the movie is so stylized, so synthetic to a large degree, the characters feel synthetic. It feels so fantastical. I don't have an anchor to her feelings. I don't feel for her when she is going into this mental anguish, when I should be. And so, as we've described it, it's such a visual orientation that I feel like something on character is really left behind.
Yeah, well, it just overbears you. Right?
Yeah.
And it overbears you, or to whatever extent it overbears you, it overbears me, with just his gifts as a filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, like I said, like, it's amazing that I like this movie as much as I did. Because because there's so many things about it. Like, there's just a certain thing about that kind of. I keep coming back to the mean girl and the boyfriend. There's just something about it that's so characters for me that it is so irritating, because it's like, I get it. You got to go from point A to point B, right? You got to get her here. She's here. You got to get her there. But it's like the job of the dramatist, right, is to get her where you need to get her in the most interesting way possible.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you got to get her there. You got to get her out. You got to get her to this apartment. Yeah. Right. Incidentally, like, who lives in an apartment with that red and blue light flashing all the time? I would have put electrical tape on the fucking.
Reminds me of the Seinfeld episode.
Where it is very. What is Kenny Rogers Roasters, right? I mean, she's got the Kenny Rogers Roasters side.
Just right outside.
I would be like, peace.
Yeah. Well, I think
I'm not giving you no 4 months for fucking flashing light broom.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I think it was.
But once again, it's to me, the red and blue light is in a way kind of the perfect metaphor for the movie, which is something that looks cool but makes no sense. No human being would want to live under those circumstances if they had any choice. No. With a bright light in the middle of the night flashing at them.
Yeah.
But it looks fucking cool.
Yeah,
it goes in.
It goes in.
Yeah, I think, that to me is in some way kind of this movie. But it does look cool. Yeah. You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
He is not wrong. He knows visually what can work for the situation. So I think we can summarize on last night. So maybe just
I feel like we've got our takes off on it.
I think it is not his strongest work, but it showcases some of his strongest predilections as a filmmaker.
Certainly, some of the scenes are as good as
what he can
but
craft.
Here's the thing, right? It's funny. I don't know if I just make these things up. I think these two movies kind of in a way sit together well. This and Antlers, because it's like I think that, like. You look at his friend and another preternaturally gifted filmmaker, Quentin Tarantino, who can do this, where he has these tremendous visual sequences, but he never goes wrong in this way, because his movies just aren't about that much.
Yeah,
they're about, like, the one thing that they're about, and that's it.
Yeah,
right. Whereas this movie is hampered, and Antlers is even more hampered by its desire to be about something.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, it doesn't have to be about something.
No.
It can be. And, like, I just want to say, like, violence against women is a real thing.
Absolutely.
Right? And you should make movies about it and make them as graphic or disturbing or whatever as you want. Like, go there. But if it's a device, that just kind of cheapens it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, like, I can just think of so many more. Like, what if the movie really was, like, a meditation on nostalgia? What if it really was about the collision between messy reality and the beautiful image that you have in your head? What if it was about, like, what is both problematic and beautiful about the 60s versus now, right? Because that is an interesting thing. I think
so, yeah.
I think that, like, the way that we see that... we are... like... America is infected by the way that we see the 50s and the 60s, and I'm sure that's true for the United Kingdom too. Someone, I think it's Matt Crispin, who's one of the guys on Chapo, says, America is a debate between people who think the 50s were good and people who think the 60s were good. And I think that's basically accurate.
Yeah.
And so, like, there's all kinds of interesting stories to tell there if you deployed all this same stuff with, like, a somewhat more subtlety. But, like, this is a movie that has no subtlety.
No, it has no subtlety, and so therefore it doesn't necessarily have the evidence or the depth to enforce a lot of the superficial ideas that are around it. And so, again, I think that that is essentially the problem with the movie. Maybe if he had just adopted the idea that it is just kind of a stylistic immersion into this fantasia of his mind, I think, without necessarily the devices that are being forced upon, the commentary that's being forced upon on this movie, I don't think it's necessarily all there. And so maybe that's the problem with analysis and criticism in general, is because because it's not necessarily, the evidence is not there, maybe it's not really about that at all. Maybe it is just kind of about getting lost in the past, getting lost in the cinema of the past, getting lost in the ideas of the past, which maybe Edgar Wright sees as scary some of the time. Maybe he loves old music, he loves old movies, he's seen a lot of them. He is prolific in how he engages in cinema. He's a true cinema fan. So maybe it generally is just about that.
He's a cinephile.
He's a huge cinephile. He's more of a cinephile than I think anybody here in this room.
That's true. That's true. It's true. And I'm surrounded by cinema and taxidermy. Okay. I feel like we did that one.
Yeah, that's a good one. So let's move on to Antlers.
Okay.
Antlers.
Okay, back to spoiler free zone. Right there.
All right.
Smash the like and subscribe.
Yeah, we'll put a thing there. So why don't you start? General take on Antlers.
What? Talk about a messy ass movie.
Oh yes, incredibly messy.
Messy along every axis. Visually messy, plot messy, thematically messy,
character messy. Yeah,
it's just. Let me tell you about the Antlers. I'm not going to tell you what the themes are, but I will tell you that it's got something for everyone.
Yeah,
it's a grab bag. I mean, what can we say? There's a monster.
It's a monster movie.
It's a monster movie.
Yeah.
And
it's a Wendigo.
It's a Wendigo.
Yeah.
We learned at some point that it's a Wendigo. It's a monster. There's a monster. The monster's hungry. They're doing stuff. The monster is living in a house with a kid, and it is hungry. And it needs food, and it's gonna get food, and it's gonna get more fucked up. Right? I mean, that's really it. We know what that is. We know what that is. So it's geez, what can you say about this movie? I just recently rewatched Jaws, which is the greatest, I think, of this kind of
the monsters.
movie.
Yeah, kind of
this particular
foundational piece
yes,
of monster.
We're not talking about
cinema,
kaiju movies, which is another kind of monster movie.
Different.
But this sort of, there is a hungry monster that we need to deal with, and I think everything that's good about Jaws can often be used to say what's less good about other movies that aspire to be Jaws.
Yeah.
Right. Jaws doesn't tell you what it's about, and consequently, you can staple onto it all kinds of theories about what the shark represents.
Sure, because there's more to talk about in the characterization of Brody, like in how in Schneider, Roy.
Yes.
Schneider's character.
So yes, you can think about what that character means, but like the movie at no point tells you. I mean, yeah, you've got the hapless mayor and whatever, blah 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 blah, and that there's a variant to that in this, it doesn't tell you what it's about. This movie tells you several things that it's about all the time. It's always telling you what this is about. And it's about different things at different times. It's kind of about whatever is in the movie at that moment.
Yeah.
There is environmental stuff. There is family stuff.
Family trauma.
There is
environmental trauma, family trauma, probably historical trauma.
Well, so this movie also... So yeah, there's an environmental angle. There's a fucked up family angle. This movie is also fitting into what I would call the growing genre of white people are fucked up, where we love to look at like rural white people who are addicted to meth and fentanyl, just being messed up, really just having... They're miserable, and they're out there... I mean, literally, I don't... The one thing that I think never happens in this movie, I don't think anyone ever smiles. I don't think there's a single smile on anyone's face at any moment for any reason. But it's not even interestingly
the father and son at the beginning of the movie,
at the very opening
do like
scene,
a fist bump.
That's the warmest it gets.
That's the warmest it gets. Yeah.
And so like what you get is a movie that is just a mess along every axis, to the point that it throws in we just got done talking about this, so maybe this is, I don't know, it throws in like some angles about bad things kind of lurking in the past of these characters that I thought were honestly kind of offensive to even put in the movie. And so what you get at the end is, what is it? This movie is a complete mess. It's funny because he didn't direct it, but Guillermo del Toro is involved in this movie. So we're talking about another brilliant filmmaker being involved with something that kind of goes wrong.
Well, that's what happens when you choose a mediocre filmmaker like Scott Cooper.
Like I said in our spoiler-laden review we just did, it does hold back the monster. The visual development of the monster works. Some of the visual stuff works. I mean, some of it is grotesque, but in a way, there are grotesque things in this movie that I think don't work and shouldn't be in there. But like the grotesqueness around the monster and what the monster does, I think is fine. Yeah, it works as far as it goes, right? Which is to emphasize the kind of overall grotesqueness of what's happening. But I don't know. I mean, I like Kerry Russell. I was glad to see her getting work. And
how they handle some of her character stuff I didn't like, but she is not the problem for that.
But I mean, she does a good job. Like she does what she can with what she's got. But like, and I'll say like, at the core of this movie is just even on its own terms, it's very dissatisfying because. This is the one other parallel I'll draw to Jaws before we get into like actual spoilers. Is like one thing that's great about Jaws is that the people against Jaws are themselves badasses, right? They're not. It's a real fight, right? And the three guys that go out to get Jaws, they've all got limitations, but they're a formidable team, right? They have something.
So they have the intelligence on one side. They have the experience of fishing and hunting these kind of animals on the other. And so, because of the conventions of film, you assume they'll succeed, but you feel like it's a real fight, and we're going to see a real fight, right? And a lot of the pleasure of a movie like this is having a good, high quality back and forth. Yeah. Right. And this movie, because the characters are so deficient, does not have that. Yeah, it's rough. There is no balance. Like, it's funny, right? Because another movie that shares something, or a show that shares some of this is like the earlier seasons of Stranger Things. And I have mixed feelings about that show. One thing I really like about it is that the sheriff is like pretty good. Like he's a pretty tough dude who brings something to the table, right? In this movie, all the characters, I mean, the truth is this whole town should be eaten. This whole town should be eaten. There is nobody who's up for this. No. There is nobody who's up to the challenge. They have no life. This community is dead.
And so when the movie resolves, it's very dissatisfying because there's nobody in this town. Like, literally, this whole town should be either Wendigos or dead. Yeah. Fucking eaten. Because there's nobody there who should be able to stand up in this situation. Yeah. And the lack of that person or people, I mean, is fundamentally another thing that makes this movie just... Yes. Like, you have to give the you have to have a real nemesis or nemesis, right? If you're going to have the predator, you got to have the guys going after the predator, right? And they have to be good, right? Because otherwise you're just like, well, yeah, you're all going to die, right? And that's cool.
And that will get into, when we get into spoilers, when we get into that finale, the fight that occurs, there's such emptiness to it. There's no life to it, and so it's so bad. Frustrating. You're
really
right.
Bad.
What you have described.
It's really a case of just absolutely, it's inept. Such an anticlimax.
It's limp. It's just such a limp finale, and it takes. And again, what we've described is, I think the reservedness with the monster is a good choice.
Yes, that is the one that is like, I mean, it's textbook, right? It's not like they came up with this idea against Jaws, but yes, it's smart for if you're gonna have a movie centered on one monster. Yeah. You want to kind of dole out the appearance of the monster.
Exactly. Yeah, the pieces, put it all together.
Yes. So that's the right choice.
I will say on some of the casting, I don't think the casting is the problem. Obviously, I think the script is the problem. Because they don't give a lot of life, intent, or motivation.
Props to that kid who makes it work.
Yes.
And I can't imagine doing some of these scenes. I hope they made it fun for that kid.
Yeah, I do too, because
I hope
they made it fun for
that kid. But he has to do some pretty gross stuff in the movie.
It is true,
and I'm sure that they, whatever. I mean, I'm sure they treated him well, but it's just props to the kid who brings depth and pathos and believability to a difficult. To what would be hard to do.
It'd be a very difficult. You believe that it's a difficult situation.
It's dark, and it's dark vis-a-vis his family, right? So he has to bring. I mean, he pretty much has to carry the movie. I don't like this movie. It don't work for me, but it would be unwatchable if you didn't buy him.
That's very
and
true.
I totally bought his performance. I mean, it's essential.
Right. You're right. If he was bad, then it would be unwatchable.
Yeah, this movie would have no weight. You just
nothing.
You would
nothing going for it.
You wouldn't be able to watch it because it would just be too ridiculous. And he brings it, right. So respect to that kid.
Yeah, I mean, this is the problem. So people might be fans of Scott Cooper. Personally, I don't understand why. I mean, he does riffs on movies that you've seen before, such as his Crazy Heart is essentially just a modern version of Tender Mercies. He has declared out of the furnace his Deer Hunter, his not POW, but his veteran PTSD sort of rumination on.
I thought you were saying POD, like the band.
Yeah, POD.
His POD.
Playable on Death. The new metal band from the
Here come the boys from the South.
So and then if you look at Black Mass, it's kind of a messy. Goodfellas is his gangster rumination. You go to Hostiles, it's just
he's playing the hits, man. He's playing the fucking hits.
I know.
He's a cover band playing the hits.
I mean, his Hostiles is a stricken in energy and enthusiasm or personality version of Ozana's Raid to a large degree, and you're just like, oh man, I get it. I like the idea of Scott Cooper. I like the idea of somebody trying to reinvent new Hollywood for a modern day and try and revisit some of those ideas. But again, he is not as talented as, say, the cinephiles of the film school era, such as an Edgar Wright, such as a Quentin Tarantino, who are able to sort of filter, maneuver, and bend, twist those influences into something creative. He's just riffing on things that you've already seen before.
This shit is just not interesting. I can't imagine, even if you enjoyed this movie, right? Because, he's a guy, I mean, he clearly has, the basics down, right? He can block and tackle, right?
Sure.
So if you enjoyed this movie because this movie is just kind of your thing, right? And like I said, the design of the monster is cool. That works. And it's visually kind of arresting at moments. Although, of course, it's all movies about messed up rural white people have to be very blue and gray. They just have to be very gray. because their lives are great because they're all on meth and fent. But it's very like there's just nothing interesting.
No.
Here. Yeah, no. Even if you liked it, I don't know what you'd think would be interesting.
Yeah, because you're right.
And the people you're talking about, those people make interesting movies.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we can go into like more detail. So this would be spoiler.
Okay, spoiler time.
Because you can smash the like button.
We don't like about smash the like, smash the subscribe.
Well, when we get into this story, you're right. The community is painted in such dour bleakness,
and also they have no fucking internet. Like there are people getting eaten, and nobody's like. I mean, even in Jaws, the people show up.
Yeah,
Jaws, that's pre-internet, and they show up at the town meeting, and be like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
Now, granted, it happened on the beach, right? This happened like in the woods, but like, I mean, what this idea that the Jesse Plemons, the sheriff character, can be like, oh, I think it's no big deal. I mean, how big is this town? How many people get eaten every day?
Yeah, exactly.
But of course, they're so downtrodden.
Yeah.
That people just dying is like no big deal.
Yeah, they're all traumatized. Like you get the feeling because that's initially what's going on is that Kerry Russell has moved back. Her brother, she left her brother
from godless California.
Yeah, from godless California. Now they are in. Where are they actually? Is it like Oregon?
Oregon. I forget the name of it. It's something Falls.
Yeah, Oregon.
Cthulhu Falls, we'll call it, because it's very.
And so she left because she was being traumatized, sexually harassed by their father. Who has like an
since you brought this up, I want to just stop briefly on that.
Yeah,
I hate that scene.
Oh, when she's playing the piano?
That scene is so gross and so disturbing and so unnecessary and irrelevant.
Completely.
Talk about something that like trivializes sexual abuse and violence against women, right? It's insane that this movie, which has nothing to do with this, nothing to do, not even on the most loose reading, does it have anything to do with sexual abuse?
None.
There, you get this scene just in the middle of the movie that is just grotesque depiction of her being molested
it's
by her dad, and then her dad laying on her bed. I don't even know,
crying like a child, like an
but
infant,
also naked.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just like it's so gratuitous. Like I said with Last Night in Soho. Violence against women is real. Sexual abuse in houses is real. You want to make that movie. But, like, this scene serves no purpose. It comes from nowhere. It returns to nowhere.
Yeah.
And it is about... What does it do? It over-determines her motivation to help this kid? Like, she's going to help the kid. That's not where anyone's getting off on this movie.
No.
It's not hard to buy that she wants to help the kid. So to over-determine it by saying, like, not just was she abused like this kid, she was really fucked up, and she left and she had to come back. And that scene was just so... Like, the other horrific scenes in the movie, at least, okay. Like, the disembodied bodies.
Yeah.
Very gross, very hard to watch.
Antlers coming out of someone's mouth.
The kid dealing with dead bodies. Very sort of disturbing images. But at least they make sense and they serve a purpose.
Yeah.
I thought that scene was just... I have real deep discomfort with that scene. Because I think that it just has it just takes, like... What's the worst thing? What's the worst thing that could have happened to this woman? Well, being sexually abused by her father. Let's have that happen to her.
Yeah.
You're right. That has nothing to do with the movie in any other sense.
It's insulting. It's insulting to people who've had the issue. It's insulting, I think, to the audience to overly explain what happened to her and give you a visualization when all you have to do... I mean, you get the idea. She's like... She apologizes to her brother. I'm sorry I left you. I'm sorry this. And...
But that whole honestly, B story just goes nowhere.
It doesn't. You're right.
That whole B story between her and her brother just goes nowhere.
Yeah.
Like I said, what are we? We're setting up, like, we're over setting up the idea that she wants to help this kid. She could be not fucked up at all and just want to help the kid. Cause
it's true.
It's sad.
It's just good,
right?
Good nature.
Like, you don't need this whole... that's what it is. This movie just bakes in, like, so much misery at so many levels. Not only is the kid living with a fucking animal, his dad, who's now a fucking antler animal, a Wendigo... right?
He's morphing.
He's also
transforming.
he's been abused. His mom is dead. Her parents are dead. The whole town is on drugs. His dad is cooking meth.
Yep.
Like, it's just such a parade of horrors, right? And it's so ridiculous. It has nothing to do with the movie, and it makes the movie I think the movie clocks in about 100 minutes. Is bloated at 100 minutes because it's just like so much, like just floating misery.
You're right, and all of this beeline of trauma, familial trauma, trying to protect. Even though it's the impetus for the character, the whole movie opens with a narrator. I think it's Graham Greene, who's the Native American actor who's in it, and he's saying that essentially
we get a magical Indian in this movie
I do. Yeah, it's
Let's
really offensive.
Talk about favorite tropes. Just gotta get a magical Indian,
and
in
so
there
who
knows about the Wendigo.
Yeah, he's describing the situation that it's environmental and that it's man and their hubris.
Let's go through the cornucopia grab bag of themes.
Yeah.
I love this. We got something for the left.
Got a
It's the
little bit,
environment.
yeah.
We got something for the right. We need to lock these people up and take away their kids, right? Because there's this whole plot line about how I can't arrest him. I can't take his kids. He can cook meth and what does Jesse Plemons say about the
fentanyl?
The dad come Wendigo. He's like, I've locked him up or had to give him Norco more times than I can remember. So he's doing meth and fent. He's a terrible person, but we can't take his kids because the government is ineffectual. And by the way, the government's also like I said, he's going to pull the Jaws mayor thing even longer. They're going to not do anything and pretend everything is okay because the government
they're going to explain it rationally. Like we don't want to believe the Indian, the Native American because of their story.
Well, that's the other thing. Yeah, so they have to go to the magical Indian to find out that it's the Wendigo. It's like once again like. He's like, he says like, well, how could he? If he's not native, how could he know? Well, maybe he Googled it, right? Maybe these people have the internet there, right? Maybe he just Googled up Wendigo and found out like the idea that he couldn't know about this.
Yeah.
If he wasn't indigenous, is just hilarious to me. Like
this is a secret, sacred knowledge for only us. Okay. How did you figure this out?
But we're not even done. God is somehow involved because the kid talks about God being dead. I guess maybe Nietzsche's involved too. And there's also like
it's the father. The father says God is dead.
The father says God. The father is Nietzsche. No, the
evil.
Father's like a Nietzschean hero, right? He becomes a Nietzschean hero.
Okay,
He becomes
Nietzsche
the
was
Ubermensch.
lamenting that God was dead.
I know, I understand that, but like I'm just trying to get all because at one point early in the movie you see this very gratuitously illuminated cross on the kid's bedside. Do we talk more about religion? Of course we don't. We just have these two mentions of it, one visual, one through dialogue. Families, trauma, lots. We've already covered that. The trauma of disinvestment in rural America. It's like, well, what else do we need to? Can we throw in a little more content?
Yeah.
What else can we make this movie about?
It's like you needed to choose one of these things.
I would say you should choose none. But you could choose one.
But yeah, if you're going to have a solidified direction, that's the thing. It starts with all of these fractured, bloated elements, and it just starts, fraying off into multiple directions, and they never coincide.
It's like
they never come together.
They should have had just a guy show up in the middle of the movie and give a rant about any hot button topic. Prayer in schools, critical race theory, whatever. And just have his ass get eaten, right? Just say, well, okay, that's what the movie's about too. Or like, what if they should have put someone in the middle of this movie who was obsessed with fluoride in the water. That would have really been choice.
Yeah.
And then just have his ass get eaten by the Wendigo. Because it's also anti-bullying because the bully gets eaten in a great take on the Scud Farkas scene.
I have to say, this idea, and this was also in Candyman this year.
You gotta be anti-bullying, man.
No,
bullies should get eaten.
I get that bullying is a thing. I get that you can ostracize people, and that the people who get ostracized, bullied, that has mental anguish. But there's also studies proof that the people who bully are also like are traumatized.
No, they should get eaten, motherfucker. Why are you pro-bully? This is not a pro-bullying show, Kyle.
I'm not pro-bully.
Everybody
bullied.
in this town is traumatized. Do you remember those scenes where they would like pan across the class and there's the one know-it-all? This is the only laughs in the movie is from the one know-it-all girl who always has her hand up.
Yeah.
The ginger girl who's like the only one who can afford clothes that don't look like shit.
Yeah.
In the whole town. She's probably like the one lawyer is her dad's the mayor or something. We don't know.
She's going to come back and fix this town.
Yeah, or become a Wendigo. The whole, like I said, the whole town should be Wendigos. This town is not functioning. I don't understand what stopped it from happening.
Just decimate it.
Yeah, I mean this town shouldn't last a week.
Well, that's
with this apex predator just roaming around eating people.
I mean, that's the thing. There's something about like in Candyman when you have this off scene where you introduce some black girl character who you haven't seen through at any point really through the entire movie, but you've seen one of the bully girls who are not very nice. She has seen the art exhibit of Candyman. She gets all her girlfriends together and they do the Candyman 5 times in the mirror while the bullied black girls in the stall, and all these girls who are, by the way, are just in high school. And you know, I know that there's this idea that all these people, well, apparently they should be butchered by the Candyman. They should be eaten by the Wendigo.
The Candyman, because
this kid that gets eaten by the Wendigo is like,
he's Scott Farkas.
No, he's 12
he even
years
looks a little bit
old.
Looks a little bit like Scott Farkas.
He does look like Scott Farkas. He's 12 years old. You're telling me that there's a sense of judgment on that action to watch that kid die, and it's so disturbing to me.
He's just protecting his family, the Wendigo. No, I agree with you. It's just like
so.
But I mean,
nasty.
it's the perfect metaphor for the world we live in, which is that people are incoherent and judgmental,
mm-hmm.
right? People are just angry. Maybe this is the perfect movie, actually, because it's a perfect encapsulation of just like the incoherence, right, and anger and rage of the world we live in, where people kind of they sort of take a variety of insane views from the buffet of life, because and then they hate. They just want people to get eaten, right,
mm-hmm.
because their lives have become so depressing and fucked up that hoping for the people they don't like to be devoured by a monster is the fullest measure of their satisfaction that we can afford them.
Rage comes heavily in this movie, where that's I think the most authentic emotion felt, especially with either how it's proclaimed. The Wendigo is an embodiment of rage. Is that that's how it's described? So it's the only emotion you really get to feel, because everyone is emotionless. Everyone is so defeated. The whole town is so dour and bleak. Nobody's able to feel anything but rage or being sorry for themselves. And so when you have a world that's just so depleted, and all that you see as a embodiment, and maybe that's maybe an intent with the embodiment of the Wendigo in this film, that if everything else is just lifeless and all that you have is rage to take over, it will start devouring, it will start taking over. But I'm giving also a little more credit to the movie for that, because I don't think that's the intent. You don't feel that's the intent because it's so fractured and disoriented and incoherent. But that's the better kind of movie. That's the better movie where you allow rage into your community. You allow that to fester and grow, and then it transforms and mutates and spreads. That would be a more interesting monster movie in our time and age, where rage is, I think, the emotion of the day. I think everyone's dictated by rage. Everyone wants to be grievanced. Everybody wants to feel this kind of emotion. So the Wendigo, I think, in a representation makes sense for a particular monster movie, but I think it's being misapplied.
Well, the great irony of making movies about something is that it's probably hard if you try,
mm-hmm.
right? I mean, like, it seems to me that horror is most effective when it's deeply felt and personal.
Yeah.
Right? And then things can come out of it that are interesting, right? I think about movies that I like that are clearly about something, right? I like They Live.
They Live's great.
And, you know, Carpenter is clearly responding to some deeply felt sort of horror about what the world is becoming in the 80s.
Yes, he was.
And it's a personal feeling that he has, right? That he then translates onto the screen. And it's explicitly political, right? I mean, I don't think you could see They Live as a political movie, but it still is driven by his vision of the thing in sort of Reagan's America that he doesn't like.
The yuppieism, the consumerism that was emerging.
Yeah, they're kind of surrounded by these hollow men, right? And so, like, in this movie, it appears that what happened is someone delivered to maybe Cooper, who knows, just a memo that said that horror movies got to be about something now. You just watch Get Out, motherfucker. And also delivered to him some quantity of cocaine. And he was just like, put some on the list and did them all. It's like, well, you know, rural people, problems, family problems, environmental problems, ineffectual government problems. Like I said, it's like a grab bag. It's it's like, we got to have something for everyone here, folks. Yeah. It's like pop music, you know, it's like those songs that are written by like 13 Swedish guys. It's like, we got to have something for everyone in here. Yeah. You know, we got to have a little of this, a little of that. Yeah. So it kind of just, but it ends up not being about anything at that point, except maybe, as you're suggesting, kind of unintentionally, right? It's unintentionally kind of, when you satirize it or you make fun of it, you see that it is kind of, in some high-level sense, accurate, in that it's kind of about incoherent anger that kind of people try to justify through whatever they reach for, which is why what happens to Kerry Russell's character as a child isn't just bad, it's the worst, right? Yeah. What happens to all these people is the worst thing that could happen to them. Because all you can do is like intensify it, right? You can just intensify the upset, right? And so that's what we see is just just someone who at every moment just makes it the worst. This is the worst town in America. Yeah. This is America's least, you know, those lists of like most livable places. This is America's least livable
situation.
You expect that if one of these corpses like ended up in the middle of the main street, people would walk past and just like,
yeah, well, that's life. That's what it is.
Happens, you know. People get disemboweled all the time around here.
Yeah, and I think because of that, they fail a lot of these characters, especially Kerry Russell, because this implementation of what drives her, which we've already talked about, is this trauma that she sees happening in the kids. So she wants to save the kid. She wants to save this kid. And it culminates into this finale, which I think is one of the worst paced and filmed finales, which it does such a disservice.
She's just like, oh, I guess I got to do this.
Well, you have to set it up. So this is like, the Wendigo is also apparently really clever, or everybody in the town is just very, very stupid, because Rory Cochrane, you know, shout out to Rory Cochrane. I barely recognized him, but I was really glad to see our boy from Dazed and Confused, you know, grown up as a cop, as Jesse Plemons' partner. He's
just in the movie to die.
He's just in the movie to die.
This guy is the ultimate red shirt character. Yeah. This is the reddest of red shirt characters.
He's like on the call, and he's like, "There's something in your shed," and he goes, "Is it the boy? Like, is it the?" And so he goes to check out the shed. All of a sudden, the Wendigo's behind him and ruptures like through him with his antlers. And then Jesse Plemons gets there, sees a dead body in the in the shed, and he's like, I'm gonna go. And he goes to the same spot, and the Wendigo also, but not just, he doesn't stab him because also Jesse Plemons has to live. He just throws him and then stabs him through the wall, which allows him to live. I was just like, this is the dumbest setup.
We haven't even gotten to maybe the worst one, which is the fucking social worker. Who goes up into the attic. So, she sees a door that's locked on the outside. Oh my god! Yeah. And she's like, I should probably check this out.
Check it out by myself without calling the cops.
I should probably. And this house, like, we're in the worst house in the worst town in America,
and it smells like death inside already.
The house is so frightening and unpleasant that, like, when Kerry Russell like skitters away from it earlier, like, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
that's what one would do.
But yet, that's an intelligent move, but she also should have called the cops.
Of course, the movie is, as these bad movies are, right? It is premised on everyone being a fucking moron. And everyone doing the worst
So
thing.
frustrating.
And it's like, I get it, right? This will, once again, we're super on the nose here. This is the environmental thing. The problem is obvious. We're staring right at it, but we can't deal with it for whatever reason. Right? Okay, I get it. But, like, it's just, like, it's so incomprehensible, right? It's so not what would happen.
Yeah.
And then the social worker, who is, of course, the worst social worker, she's like, these people are terrible. I hate them all.
They probably deserve to be abused.
But I'll go check on them anyways, even though I'm a terrible.
If I get the time, I'll go check on them. I'm like, really?
Really? She's
that's gonna be the response.
She's she's doing okay because she drives a Volvo, so she drives her Volvo out and sees this house, which, like I said, you just have to. This is the worst town in America, the worst house in the worst town in America. It's dark. The walls are smeared with blood. And what does she do? Well, of course she goes in. Of course she unlocks the door that's locked on the outside. Of course she goes up the stairs, past the blood smears, into the smell of death and decay with the flies buzzing around that you can hear. Of course she does it. Who wouldn't? Right?
I mean, a lot of people would.
But it's just like, okay, cool. Yeah, like I would be like, I'm going to bring in some backup for this one, guys.
Yeah.
Like, I just feel, oh, God.
There's just no level of intelligence. Nobody is framed as having an ounce of common sense. And I get, some people think common sense is not so common. You hear that phrase. But I mean, if you see a dead body at the shed, do you really go check out the shed right away without checking your surround? Like, he's a cop. He's supposed to be trained, and maybe they're trying to say that it's such a
yeah, I mean, he
unfunded
is
backwards
he is
town.
Very Andy of Mayberry, right?
Yeah,
I mean, he is very Andy of Mayberry.
Yeah,
and
it's very frustrating.
But he ain't in Mayberry. This town is the anti-Mayberry. This town is through the looking glass, right? It's so bad, and it's funny though, right? Because I guess it's some measure of social justice that now in films we're treating white communities the way we used to only treat black communities, which is that they're just terrible. Right. Mm-hmm. This idea that like I remember when I moved to DC, I worked in like one of the tougher neighborhoods, and people like, from the whiter, more affluent parts, they'd be like, you go over there. And it's like there was this idea that these areas of the city were like demilitarized zones or something. Like they were just they were just so frightening, right? And the truth is that like all communities. And this is not. I don't want to undersell disinvestment in urban areas, disinvestment in rural areas, all the myriad social problems that are faced by rural whites, urban blacks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what I'm saying is, like, communities are dynamic, and there's a lot of people in them, and most of the people are surviving, right?
Yeah.
Most of the people aren't criminals or aren't hooked on drugs, right? Those are real people, and they're really there. And what's funny is that the movie even knows this a little, because one of the only characters that has any dimension, ironically enough, is the terrible dad who becomes the Wendigo, because he's sweet to his kid at the beginning, and he's the one who locks himself in his room.
Yeah.
So he actually gets to have some moments where it's like, in spite of how terrible he is, he still cares about his kids.
Yeah.
That's one of the only moments in the movie that acknowledges that there may be any sort of nuance to this at all.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think maybe it's a commentary on our social progress that now white people get in the movies, in movie land, in Pleasantville or whatever town they're in across the screen. They get to live in the same just flattened, fucked up places that we only used to have black people living in movies, right? Just places that are just unmitigatedly terrible, and to the point of being almost cartoonish, right? Like this is a place that is just cartoonishly depressing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's annoyingly so. It's just it does a detriment to anything that you're trying to say, which they I don't think they really have a fine point of what they want to say.
No, it's grab bag.
Yeah,
it
dilutes the characters, their motivations. It dilutes the experience. It makes them all such zombies in this monster tale when you need a sense of life. If the monster is taking life, you need a sense of life to be taken. And so it's very frustrating to watch that. And so
this monster should be cutting through this town like a hot knife through butter.
Oh, I know. It's so easy.
Like I could kill everyone.
I don't understand. Town. Yeah. You could just go down the street with a knife.
These people put up no resistance.
None.
You'd stab them. They'd be like, Carrie Russell's the only one who's going to put up any resistance because she's been in, like I said, in godless California where the sun still shines and people still. Not everyone is waiting for the sweet release of death, I guess.
Well, and it builds up to this, her fulfillment of her journey, or to alleviate whatever guilt she has for not protecting her brother, all these things that I don't think are credible to how the narrative plays out or how the character is defined. Again, I think they do a disservice to her script-wise. I think she's good. But man, this finale with the monster, and when it's finally revealed, I do have to give this part of the movie credit. The monster is, even though I think showing the monster does kind of inevitably is disappointing, I think in most monster movies, like once you see the monster, you're like, it's not as scary as the thing in your mind, especially when you see pieces of him behind people and he punctures them with the antlers. It's like that in your imagination is far more powerful than what another person's interpretation of it is. But I do have to say, this blend of it looks like puppetry and animatronics. I mean, it's a physical monster to a large degree in most of the shots.
I will say that, like, when you see his, like, the skin of his face,
I hated that.
You hated that?
I didn't like that.
I thought it was creepy.
I mean, it's creepy, but it was digital. So I was like, could you have done something?
Well, what's funny is the movie can't even help stop being heavy-handed, right? Because there's he sort of sloughs off right before he's about to become the full Wendigo.
Yeah.
He scrapes off the skin.
The skin of the face.
Did you see that?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
It's like, okay, I get it. Yeah, he's no longer.
But then
human
it's
at all. He shed the last humanity.
Again, we've just watched this thing annihilate a child and like two men with ease, with no fight whatsoever. So Carrie Russell has a gun and starts shooting at it, and it knocks the gun out of her hand. And I'm like, well, she's dead. But she's not.
You know she's not dead, though.
I know, but
so what she do? She picks up like some rebar or something that's just hanging out in the old meth lab.
It's just how she's fighting it, and I guess because it's a physical puppet and animatronic, whatever they're doing to, and I like that. I like that it's organic, but they needed to film it better because the energy and pacing of it is so lethargic and uninvesting for me emotionally.
And the only way they get there
involved in
is because the Graham Greene character tells them
gotta do the heart. You gotta
but also like
heart.
Once it's fed the most, it's like a bloated tick. Once it's fed the most, it's weakened.
Yeah.
Once it's like done too much feeding, it's weak. So we see that it's just eating a bear.
Yeah.
And so it's way full. And so that's when you can get it.
Yeah, sure.
So we just have to explain how Carrie Russell alone is going to be able to kind of stab this thing, which is impervious to gunshots, but can be stabbed with some rebar.
And then take out its heart.
From her being like, whatever, by herself. And,
And then it gets to, I think, the bleakest moment where she has to kill a child, which is... I think just overdone too, and I understand, like, once you're infected, like it's just kind of the emergence of the Wendigo within you, but man, does it just, again, it would have more impact if everything else wasn't so miserable.
Yeah, I mean, you expect her to have to stab herself, right? You expect her to have to stab I expect her to have to stab the protagonist kid. It's like, why not? Why not just do it all? Why not have her to pull a pin on a grenade, right? I mean, it's like, there's no, you're right, there is no impact because the thing is so
stricken.
It's just so miserable.
Yeah.
It's so cartoonishly miserable.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
You know, you can't have, dramatic impact comes from contrast, right? I mean, the thing has to be like uniquely bad.
Yes.
Whereas, like, everything in this movie is nothing good happens in this movie to anyone. Nothing. And everything is extremely miserable.
Everything's flatlined all the way through.
I mean, it seems that probably everyone in this town is waiting for the sweet release of death. And some of them get it,
Yeah,
God
some of them
bless.
do.
I mean, it's just very bleak to the point that it's cartoonishly bleak.
Unfortunately so. Well, I guess to summarize, I mean, I certainly wouldn't recommend Antlers. I don't think it's worth your time.
I think even if this is your thing, this probably isn't. I mean, it's not my thing, so
I mean,
take whatever I said with with that context.
I can appreciate a good monster movie. I can appreciate a campy monster movie. I can appreciate.
I wish this were campy.
I wish that were the case.
I wish this were campy.
I think that would have been
campy,
thoroughly more fun.
Campy could be fun.
Yeah,
but once you get a kid, I mean, the whole thing is driven by the initial choice to have the kid. Because once you have the kid.
Feeding his infected dad and brother.
It's gotta be super depressing because fucked up things happening to kids is, as this movie realizes, is the worst.
Yeah,
that's the worst. A fucked up thing happening to a kid is you can't camp that up.
Yeah, it's true.
Adults, you can do whatever.
Absolutely,
but kids, you can't.
No.
Do.
And they're reaping what they sow, and that sort of dramatic choice, and so they fill it up with just misery and awfulness, and so it just feels empty by the end, and you're unconvinced that it would unfold this way. You're unconvinced that she would be able to defeat this monster. You're unconvinced that this was a good character motivation in the end, and so everything about it, I think, is a waste of time. It would be a waste of your money. And I know there's a lot of genre picture aficionados to say that you got to support this movie so we get more of them, and I don't want more of what this is. I feel
like horror movies are going to be fine.
Exactly. I've never understood that argument.
That new Halloween movie is getting panned by critics and killing it at the box office. Horror movies are going to keep coming because they're cheap to make. And they have an audience.
Yeah, they do.
Right? So you're not going to not get horror movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry for the double negative there. You will get horror movies.
You will get
to translate my.
You will get horror movies, I think, till the end of time. Like until.
But I mean, I still
love
to Guillermo del Toro, and I mean, like I said, like the visual of the monster. I mean, it worked for me. Right? It's like you like this. I don't know. I mean, he produced it. Like I don't know how much.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think that it just doesn't have a point. It doesn't have a message. It has so many messages.
It's Antlers. Maybe that's it. It's got all the points.
Yeah, it's
Antlers.
Got too many points coming out. And
many points is a big buck.
Yeah, it's the biggest of bucks.
It's
apparently.
a fucking big buck.
So it's just rather disappointing. I think it's a mediocre effort.
They should have had like a Quint character. Let's go back to Jaws. What if there was like an animal hunter? That was
You're gonna need a bigger.
He's walking around with a blunderbuss. Yep. He shows up in town with a blunderbuss.
You're gonna need a bigger tow truck. Like
you know what I do. You all know what I do. I'll do it, but it's gonna take more than your little $5,000.
Yeah,
he just shows up. He shows up with an elephant gun.
It's like the guy from it's the guy from Jumanji. Coming out with the full attire. Got this blunderbuss.
Yeah, I think that guy shows up. I'm in. I'm sold.
Man, that's a camp. That's the camp angle.
But at least we can imagine if it's Jaws on land
shark,
and the guy shows up and he's a fucking lunatic.
Yeah.
Okay, we can get into that, right? We can enjoy that. We could have some fun with that.
And maybe the community has to get all of their resources together because they're so poor. And then it's a commentary about people exploiting poor community. Yeah. Again, you can have a message there. You can get into all that.
I mean, there's a reason that the guys are drinking and having fun on the boat right before Jaws comes and fucks their boat up. Like we need contrast. We need levels. We need the characters to... Yeah, like these people have nothing to lose.
See them.
These people have nothing to lose.
They have nothing.
You're not sure that their life would be better as the wind. If I were one of these people, I might roll my dice with becoming the Wendigo. Like, well, that's a new life experience.
That's interesting. Like, let me do that.
That'll break up the fucking terrible. Like I've done. I could die doing fentanyl, or I could become a monster. Right?
A monster. Yeah.
I might try. I might choose monster.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's.
I lived in Cthulhu Falls, Oregon.
That is an accurate statement. I think that is the choice for a lot of these people, and I think that's what's truly unfortunate about just because things are miserable doesn't mean that that's how. I think these communities, there's probably a lot of horrendous, socio-political aspects that affect them.
Well, yeah,
quite a large
as the
degree.
kids say, the struggle is real.
Yeah,
but
are you gonna tell me that they don't enjoy ice cream here and there? That was another thing. She's like, well, if this is vegetables, she's eating the ice cream. And what is your favorite fruit? And he says donuts, like, trying to play the game. She goes, yeah, chocolate obviously is my favorite. She's eating strawberry ice cream. I was like, how would it be obvious that chocolate is your favorite? I hate all the little details about this movie. I hate it. This was a bore. This was I didn't think the atmosphere worked to a large degree. The characters were dull. The messaging is so frayed and incoherent that nothing about the experience was involving, and so I do not recommend Antlers. I imagine you don't either.
I think people can tell how I feel about it.
Yeah,
no, but I mean, like we said, maybe it's the greatest. Maybe it's the greatest commentary. The movie, it's like how Coppola said, "Apocalypse Now." It's not about Vietnam. It is Vietnam. This movie's not about America. This movie is America.
Yeah.
Maybe
we're missing it.
Maybe it's great, but probably not. And we've told you what the theme is now, so you don't have to see it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I thought this was a good week to catch up and talk some movies.
Do we do a review now of our reviews?
Yeah. This was a solid, good
job.
B+ effort.
Yeah,
I thought we delved into it quite well. We'll be back next week. I think we're
smash the like, smash the subscribe.
Yeah,
just smash.
Do all the things.
Get it all.
Or smash. Do all
those things.
Go
subscribe to I Know Movies and You Don't.
Oh yeah, I Know Movies.
Go subscribe to Dead Reckoner. I may post something eventually again. Just do it. Live your life. Have fun.
Do all those things.
Thank you for watching.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much if you are watching this. And
if you want to do this, that's the only way they're going to see it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's and so next week we'll return. We're going to review Marvel's The Eternals. Eternals. Marvel's Eternals. That's what it is. And Pablo Larraín, his new movie, Spencer.
That's
about
right.
Princess
That's
Diana.
right.
So we will. I think that will be a very interesting week.
I'm excited.
I'm excited to experience both these movies. One more than the other for positive reasons. One for just curiosity. I think you can probably tell which one those are.
Kyle, who's your favorite Eternal? Is it Kingo?
I don't know too much about it. I'll be doing some research. I've read only a minor share of Jack Kirby's work on Eternals. It is a work that I never found all that interesting. I think the more powerful Marvel becomes, the less interesting it becomes. So I think that's part of my disinterest in Eternals and the work that we're in the stage of the phase that we're about to get into on Marvel.
Okay, so, phase 17.
So yeah, I think that's what it is.
Dig in. Dig in.
Well, we'll see you next week.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you, Kyle.